Morning, everybody. How's everyone feeling? Good. Good to see it. So, welcome everybody to the fourth MIT and Africa Innovate. We are really thrilled to have you here. In true Africa tradition, not everybody is here yet, but over the course of the day, I assure you we have a full attendance. There's going to be a lot of people to meet, and it's just going to be a fantastic day. You know, this time last year, we put on the third MIT African Innovate Conference, and it was fantastic. The feedback was incredible. And you know, over the course of the last 365 days, some of the ideas that we started to think about in that day have really germinated into great partnerships, teams, and in some cases, some businesses. And if we're really lucky, we'll get a chance to kind of hear about some of that today. We have a fantastic program. The team have worked extremely hard to bring for you some of the best keynotes we have ever had. It's just been a fantastic year. You're going to hear from some amazing panelists. And then we have our vision talks, where we get to hear from the generation of the future. So one thing that I would challenge you with, over the course of the last decade, we've heard a lot about the fact that Africa is rising. And, there's no question that it is. The numbers prove that. And we are really proud to be in a once in a lifetime opportunity, seeing incredible growth. But the challenges are pretty well known. The tradition of MIT is to use this as a platform to figure out where we go next. The word innovate is not there by chance. It's really an opportunity for us to think about those ideas. Doesn't matter how wacky, how crazy. This is the platform, the room where you get to meet people where you can build partnerships and talk about those ideas. I guarantee you that in here there is somebody that you can connect with that can potentially change your life, but more importantly, change the life of Africa and just keep the momentum up on the African growth story. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Benga, our co-chair, who's going to present our sponsors.
Thanks a lot, Jide. Welcome, everybody. I see a lot of smiling faces. It's going to be a great day. Definitely it's going to be a really good conference. I just wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Access Bank's support for this conference has been really, really immense. Without them, this conference would not have been possible this year. Same goes for Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has been one of the forces behind us this year. And so we really, really do appreciate your support. And we're looking forward to working with you next year, because next year is going to be when we take this to the next level. Also, the CCA has been really, really helpful in soliciting speakers, filling up panels. And so this year, as myself and Jide put all the panels and all the speakers together, we thought one of the things that we needed to make sure we moved forward was the creation of partnerships for the future conferences. And so with these our sponsors, we've been able to start a conversation that we hope is going to last a long time. And so I just want to welcome you guys. And I'll also introduce our Master of Ceremony today. He is Claude Grunitsky. He is a foremost entrepreneur on the continent, and he is an MIT alum. So we're going to keep it in the house this year. Join me in welcoming him.
Thank you so much, Benga. Thank you, Jide. It is my great honor. This is my fourth actual time on the stage for the Africa Innovate, but this is my first time as the MC. So one of the things we talked about when we were working on preparing this conference was the focus on solutions. We know that there are problems, we know there's challenges, but this conference is really about finding actual solutions. And the whole discussion is going to be around situations that can lead to viable long-term investment, prosperity, and new opportunities for Africa. We have a wonderful list of panelists. We have incredible keynote speakers. And more importantly, the vision talks are also about representing the future of Africa. We have people who are going to be sharing personal experiences, and first-generation entrepreneurs like myself, first-generation founders who had an idea and struggled with the idea and eventually found a solution. I myself am a media entrepreneur. I am the founder of Trace and True. from Togo. But this building has been extremely lucky for me in many instances, because when I was here as a Sloan Fellow, I was able to meet new friends, new business partners, connect with investors who actually funded some of the incubated ventures that we worked on here. And this place holds, the world famous Media Lab holds a very, very special place in my heart. But as a Sloan Fellow, I also want to use this opportunity to introduce the Dean of the MIT Sloan School of Business, Dean Schmidtlein, who really needs no introduction on this campus. And we were just having a discussion earlier, and he was telling me that he was an empiricist. So I want Dean Schmidtlein to explain his vision for MIT's relationship to Africa going forward. There are capital campaigns, there's a lot of hard work, looking at fellowships and ways to attract more talent and fund and nurture African talent here, and also finding ways to disseminate some of the technologies on the continent. So I would like, it's my great pleasure to introduce Dean Schmidtlein from MIT Sloan.
That was great. It's a great pleasure to be here this morning to welcome you. It's been a joy and a source of pride for me to see how this conference has developed through the years, coming to a place where, as I think Jide mentioned, we'll have a couple hundred of your new best friends here today, looking at opportunities in Africa, looking at ways that innovation can benefit Africa, but also benefit individuals is really, really important. No pressure on me to announce a big new fellowship campaign for people from Africa, but honestly, we do have, as was mentioned, needs to continue to expand MIT Sloan's engagement in the world. We have great facilities, but we have needs with respect to the way that we support people, and in the MIT, not yet formally announced capital campaign, the lead item for us at MIT Sloan School is funds to support people who wish to engage with us and people within the community who wish to go out to the world. And that isn't only about Africa, but it's very much about Africa. And it's been great to see already that kind of theme resonating with donors, and we expect to be able to both support more people from the region who wish to come to MIT, and also to create more opportunities for us as individuals and for the institution as a whole to do more in Africa. So certainly there will be more to come, and I'm glad to be a part of it and to help move it forward. Very importantly this morning, I want to thank people who have spent their time and energy, and in some cases their financial resources, to make this conference not only a reality, but a very great success. My thanks also to the sponsors for this conference. I'm very appreciative. We're very proud to be associated with you and your organizations. I'm very grateful to the panelists and speakers who have spent, as I say, not only their time, but in many cases, significant resources in coming to join in this conversation today. I'm very grateful. And to our students, sometimes I worry that we take too much advantage of how lean we are administratively, because we lean very hard on our student community in creating great events, both here on campus and around the world. And the thing I have to say about that leanness is that we continue to be rewarded by the opportunities that they create for themselves and for the whole school community. They are amazing. This is an amazing event to put on. I go around the country and around the world doing multi-100-person events all the time. I can tell you there's a whole lot of work that goes into it, and I'm very proud of our students, and I'm very grateful to them for all the work that they've done. Would you mind just putting your hands together for a minute to thank them? I'm not going to do the long version of economic development in Africa, but certainly you know that parts of Africa have been the places that have seen the greatest growth, the greatest economic development, and even beyond that, the greatest sense of opportunity. Opportunity for large businesses to invest and to secure returns, and opportunities for entrepreneurs. Many of our MIT Sloan alumni have been very active in Africa, and they have found great opportunities for themselves and great opportunities to do good, sometimes through for-profit enterprises and sometimes through nonprofits. That's a little bit of a segue into my other main role this morning, which is to introduce our keynote speaker, Ashish Thakkar. So as you know, Ashish is the CEO and founder of the Mara Group and the Mara Foundation as well. Some of you know that he is a serial entrepreneur. He began his own personal journey as an entrepreneur in 1996 with, at the time, a small information technologies venture begun with a $5,000 loan. And from those small beginnings, the Mara Group has grown into a large, well-recognized, multi-sector organization focused on Africa. It works across manufacturing and retail and agriculture and, yes, IT still. Through its investments, it employs over 8,000 people and is active in 19 different countries in Africa. Ashish has, appropriately enough, been named a Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum and has been a member of the World Economic Forum's Global Agenda Council on Africa. He has many awards. I won't go through all of them, but I would like to touch on the work that he's done with the Mara Foundation, which is very much focused on this desire to create the next generation of successful entrepreneurs focused on Africa, both by empowering and by inspiring those entrepreneurs. It's a great honor, a great pleasure to welcome Ashish Thakkar to MIT. Would you please put your hands together for Ashish Thakkar?
Hello, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. My name is Ashish Thakkar. I'm the founder of the Mara Group and the Mara Foundation. I was a refugee. I'm a school dropout, an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, now a banker, an astronaut, and a fourth-generation African. For some of you who don't know the story, I'll just give you a quick background. My father's family, so we're actually originally from Persia. And then we moved to India a few hundred years ago. And then 120 years ago, my father's family moved to Uganda, purely looking for trading opportunities in 1890. Similarly, my mother's family left India and moved to Tanzania. They met from Tanzania, my mother was living in a village called Mwanza. And you cross Lake Victoria and you get to Kampala, and that's how my parents actually met, because it was easier for people in Mwanza to come to Kampala across Lake Victoria, then go back to Dar es Salaam. My parents met there, they got married, they lived in Kenya for a little bit, they lived in Rwanda, moved back to Uganda, and then in 1972, the Idi Amin saga took place. So unfortunately, my parents got kicked out, moved to England, and started again. My father worked in the Ford factory, my mother worked in the Walker's Crisp factory, built up a little bit of capital, set up a small business, built some more capital, bought a small home. In 93, they wanted to come back home. They wanted to come back to Africa. So we sold our home, we sold our business, and we moved to Rwanda. I, at the time, was studying in Nairobi because there was no good English-speaking schools in Rwanda in 93. So I was studying in Nairobi, and then April 5th, 1994, I went to, which was about 20 years ago, a week ago. I went to Kigali for my Easter holidays, and then April 6th, unfortunately, the genocide started. Me, my sister, and parents were refugees for several weeks during that genocide. How many of you have seen the movie Hotel Rwanda? So we were at home for about 9 days, and then we were taken to the so-called Hotel Rwanda, which was Hotel de Milcolin. We stayed there for quite a few days, and then after the UN left, we still stayed. And then we were taken to the French school, which was École Française, slept there for about 2-3 nights, and then went to the airport, slept there for a night, and then we were evacuated to Bujumbura, to Burundi. Unfortunately, Burundi was in a similar situation to Rwanda, and we were refugees there for a few days as well. Cutting a long story short, we luckily came out okay, but unfortunately, everything we built from 72 to 93, we lost in 94 as a family. And when I say everything, I mean literally everything. We didn't have a few $1,000s tucked away or anything like that. We literally lost everything. My parents decided to move back to Uganda, so full circle. And I'm at an age where, I'm a teenager. I can understand what's happening. I remember everything that happened. And I felt like I wanted to do something about it. I felt like I needed to do something about it. I could see people avoiding my parents, scared that if they get too close, maybe my parents may ask for a favor. Seeing that, it makes you want to do something. So I quit school at the age of 15. I took a loan of $5,000, and I set up a little IT business. I spent about $2,500 paying my first month's rent, buying a little bit of furniture, and buying a ticket to Dubai. And the other $2,500, I went to Dubai and I filled my suitcase with motherboards, hard drives, processors, and all that kind of stuff, floppy diskettes. And I flew to Uganda, and Monday to Friday I'd sell this stuff. Friday I'd go back with the cash to Dubai, fill my suitcase, Saturday, Sunday, come back again, and I did this every weekend. And then school started. And I didn't tell my parents conveniently, but a week later they obviously found out. So we sat down as a family, and I told them, I was like, look, I'm going to end up doing this, and I would really like to do it. Now I can go through the formality of going through the whole education system, but I'm still going to end up doing this. So they were very cool, and they kind of gave me the thing to say, okay, as long as you do this for a year, doesn't work out, you go back a year below your friends. I still have that option. I then basically continued doing these trips to Dubai every weekend, and I did this for about 4 months. And then I went to my suppliers in Dubai and said, guys, you've seen me here 15, 16 times. I love you, you love me. Can we kind of get some credit now? Can I, now you know me. And they said, but you're from Africa, right? And I said, yeah. And I said, but you're never going to pay us. So I was like, and in Dubai, this computer street where we used to buy stuff from is called the Khalid bin Walid Street, and it's called the Computer Street. And it's basically a street full of computer shops, still there. And there were people from Nigeria, Ghana, Zambia, Kenya buying and doing the same thing. So I went to these guys and I was like, guys, so how long have you been buying here? And some of them 6 years, 2 years, 4 years. And I was like, great, so how do you get credit? And they said, we don't, they don't trust us. So this was really bugging me. So I kept on kind of finding out how I can get around this. And then somebody advised me saying, if you set up a company in Dubai, you can actually get credit because then you're a Dubai company. So I said, great. So I needed to find in Dubai at the time, free zones weren't the big thing. You needed to find a local partner in Dubai. You needed an Emirati partner to own 51%. He actually didn't own anything, but it was a salary in advance basically, and legally they own 51%, but actually they own nothing. So I had to find the right sponsor. I found a sponsor, which happened to be the head of Dubai police, but that's a different story. He was really cool, made me his younger brother. We went to court the next day, and because of who he was, we didn't have to stand in the queue. We went to the front, and he was speaking in Arabic to everyone. It was awesome. We went right in the front, started registering, and all of a sudden he got extremely upset with the guy who made the paperwork and literally threw the papers at him and really got upset. So I was like, what's wrong? And he goes, he's made a mistake. And I was like, what mistake has he made? So this guy started laughing, and he goes, it says you're 15. So I looked at him really seriously, and I was like, I am 15. And he's like, what the hell are you doing trying to set up a company when you're 15? But anyway, my parents had to fly, my father had to fly and sign as a guardian and finally set up. Anyway, I started getting credit and went back to all these guys from Nigeria, Zambia, Ghana, and I said, how about if I give you credit? They're like, yeah, we'd love that. And I was like, yeah, but will you pay me? And they're like, yeah, of course we will. And I was like, let me come down to your country, let me see you, let me kind of break bread with your family, and then I'll see. So since 96, 97, I started extensively traveling the continent. Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Tanzania, DRC, Ethiopia, Zambia, Mozambique, Malawi, South Africa, and started supplying IT equipment. None of my debts went bad. Everybody paid back on time. But what that did for me was it gave me a very deep understanding to our markets that every single one of our countries is very different. We all have our own histories, cultures, politics, parliaments, opposition parties, the whole shebang. How do you truly plug in? How do you truly be local, but operate still in a global manner? And I think that's one of the key things. So as Mara, we kind of evolved, and we realized that our strength is that we understand how to operate on the continent, and we understand the differences between the markets in a true sense. And we started partnering with global companies who have the subject matter expertise. So to fast track to today, we now have about just over 10,500 employees. We're now in 22 African countries. We're Africa's largest IT services company, which is that business that I started. We're Africa's largest call center company. And call centers is such an interesting industry. The BPO space, you know, the largest call center, the largest BPO operator, independent call center in East Africa was 150 employees. Most of our work across the continent by telecom companies, et cetera, was outsourced, believe it or not, to the Philippines and India, et cetera. Or telecom companies are trying to do it themselves. We set up this company about 2 years ago, and we've become Africa's largest independent call center operator. And that feels great saying that as an individual, as a business, but it feels terrible saying that as a citizen. I mean, it just shows you how low our entry-level barriers are. But anyway, today in the call center space, we're in 9 countries. We're in Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Niger, Chad, Burkina Faso, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda. We're East and Central Africa's largest corrugated packaging manufacturer. We're West Africa's first glass manufacturer. We're into real estate, hospitality, and as of recent, we've gone into the banking space, which is my partner Bob Diamond and I co-founded Atlas Mara, which is Atlas Merchant Capital and Mara Group getting together and forming Atlas Mara. And our vision is pretty simple and straightforward, which is we want to become Africa's leading financial services organization. Now, by leading, we don't mean the biggest, we mean the best. And by that, we mean, you know, there's a huge gap in this market that, you know, as a sector, if you think about it, we've seen the telecom market go from, we've got about 70-80% mobile phone penetration on the continent today, yet our average banking penetration on the continent is 7-8%. A lot of the banks take client deposits, put it into government treasury, make 1,000 to 1,200 basis points, not necessarily lending to the SMEs, and that's a big gap. That market needs to be disrupted. I've been on the receiving end of financial services for the last 17 and a half years across multiple different countries, across multiple different companies, and seen that there's a big gap in the market. That this sector truly does need to be disrupted in a positive manner, in a very positive sense, in line with public policy, but does need to be disrupted. We need to increase financial penetration on the continent. And I think we've seen amazing you know, things like the mobile money, which has been awesome. What Safaricom did in Kenya was absolutely fantastic. But it now needs to become financial institution-led, not telecom operator-led, and it needs to evolve from mobile money to true mobile banking. So we're hoping that that will be done. We just announced our first 2 acquisitions, which was Bank ABC in Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mozambique, and Tanzania, and also BRD, which is the Development Bank of Rwanda, which we've kind of privatized the commercial arm in Rwanda. And we actually signed that deal in Rwanda on the anniversary of the genocide, which was quite emotional. But my mother came back after 20 years for that, and my father came back after 12, so it was quite a nice thing. As Mara, our core principles are, we have 4 core principles. And firstly, whatever we do must have a positive social impact. When I say positive social impact, I mean, you know, we're not an impact investment fund or profit for purpose. I don't know what these terms even mean, frankly. I think it's more of a fundraising thing more than anything else. But we're not an impact investment. We're just an ethical business that wants to make a difference. Secondly, whatever we do, we like to do Pan-African. We like to do multi-country, because that's our strength. We understand that. We're not going to do single-country transactions. Thirdly, a bit of a vague term, so don't drill me on this one. But you know, whatever we do, we like to do game-changing. We like to do slightly different. We don't want to copy and paste what's being done already. And lastly, everything we do is above board, and we're proud of what we do, hence we stick our label on it. So everything has the Mara brand in it. And one of the core principles of everything we generally do anyway is the fact that we want to do good and do well, in that order. And I think it's very important. Sometimes people do well promising to do good but never end up doing the good. And I think it's important to truly do good and do well at the same time. I set up the Mara Foundation about 5 years ago. And being 15 years old, starting with very little capital, no ability to network, I understand what it's like being on our continent and having this challenge. I think the answer to unemployment, and I said this at the World Bank the day before yesterday, was the answer to our unemployment issue is not going to be foreign direct investment or large industrial projects. It's going to be we need to nurture our small and medium enterprises. Our youth and our women are the answer to this. So we wanted to enable, empower, and inspire young entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs. We set up the foundation 5 years ago, and we set up a mentorship platform. We launched it in Uganda and Kenya, and we did one-to-one mentorship. Now, we did this one-to-one mentorship, and we mentored 120 businesses in the first year, which was great. You know, we were over the moon. And then my team came to me and said, next year's plan is we're going to go from 120 to 400. And they were expecting me to give them a big hug and say, yeah, let's do this. And I kind of got worried. I was like, 400? I mean, we have 1 billion people on our continent. We're never going to be able to move the needle this way. We'll go from 400 to 1,000 or 2,000. I mean, it's tiny. So I sat with 60 of the 120 entrepreneurs that we mentored, and I said, look, how can we make this experience better for you? How can we do it better? And the core feedback was that there were two things which really blew me away. Firstly, we want international mentors and not necessarily local mentors. And because of the internet, they could see what global entrepreneurs are doing, and they felt like those guys did it in a free and fair environment, and therefore they aspired to them more than they aspired to local entrepreneurs, which was very interesting. Second thing was they wanted more than one mentor. They wanted more than one mentor because they wanted different perspectives. Yeah, Ashish did it, but he did it in the mid-90s, and you know, he did it at the time when IT didn't exist, and now it's different, you can't do it that way, and that kind of thing kind of comes in their mind, and therefore they want more than one mentor, which is fair enough. And that's when we decided to kind of take the whole thing online. So we paused this whole initiative, and we spent a great deal of money and time and effort to kind of create an online mentorship platform. And in August 2012, we launched this online mentorship platform. And I launched it in Silicon Valley because I wanted to attract mentors from the Valley, from the Bay Area. And just to kind of do it in true Mara style, what we did was we actually got a plane for about 6 hours with a banner behind it saying, it's Mara, it's time for Africa. And I got it flying over Google and Facebook for about a few hours, which wasn't appreciated fully. But the whole thing in this was that we wanted to kind of get this whole buzz going. And we took it online. And I'm pleased to say today we have over 150,000 mentees across the continent. But the best part now is we're taking it on mobile. The beta version's already out on all the app stores from iPhone, Androids, Blackberries, the Nokia, etc. And it's called Mara Mentor. But the main launch is going to be done in May, and it's going to be on all platforms. And taking it on mobile and on every device, we're expecting to impact a few million entrepreneurs very, very soon across our continent. And what's amazing about this is there's an organization called Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, which take entrepreneurship into the education system. It's a US-based organization, and they've got it in China, Mexico, Ireland, etc. And they needed a mentorship platform as a continuity program. So they assessed quite a few mentorship platforms, and they chose Mara Mentor to launch in Mexico, China, and Ireland. And recently, we also announced a deal with UN Women, where Madame Pumzile is going to be launching the Mara Mentor platform in 80 countries globally. And what's amazing about this is, and what makes me really happy, is that we're used to global initiatives coming to Africa. This is an African initiative going global. So that's the nice thing. I made a very arrogant statement a few years ago, which has cost me dearly. I said that my dream is I want to see a self-sustainable Africa, and therefore I want to run a self-sustainable foundation, and therefore my foundation is not going to take any grants or third-party funding, which sounded so cool at the time. It's cost me dearly, but it's been well worth it. So our foundation has been fully funded by ourselves. There's absolutely no external capital that we accept. And it was costing quite a bit. Our burn rate, we have about 200 and something staff in the foundation. We have a lot of technology going into this. There's a lot of time, effort, and money that's been going in. And how do you make this self-sustainable? And it's a challenge. And one of the key things was that, on a mentorship platform, I can't charge mentors because they're helping out. I can't charge mentees because they're going to be impacted. I don't want a Coca-Cola banner popping up every time you open the app. So how do you make this self-sustainable? How do you actually make this self-sustainable? And that's why it comes back to doing good and doing well. If you do good, you're guaranteed to do well. So we then came up with the thing saying, let's create a parallel product which belongs to a company, which belongs to the foundation, and let that parallel product generate some revenue which will make the mentorship platform self-sustainable. So we set up an organization called Mara Online, which is our online social media business. And we set it up purely with the intention, frankly, just to make Mara mental self-sustainable. And all of a sudden, the momentum started gaining. We started gaining a lot more traction. We're about to launch our instant messaging platform, which is our feeble attempt to compete with WhatsApp and BlackBerry Messenger. We're also launching Mara Pay, which is our mobile wallet, which is going to go live across the continent. Mara Online got ranked as one of Africa's hottest tech startups. It started really building a lot more momentum. We just attracted quite a bit of funding in there as well. And the business is really, really growing. But Mara Online was set up to make the foundation self-sustainable. Today, it's a full-fledged business, and it belongs to the foundation, which is awesome to see. So, look, guys, I mean, I've been on the continent working for the last 17 and a half years. I spend 20, 25 days a month on the continent every month and have been doing so for the last 17 and a half years. I have never seen so much global excitement around Africa that I see today. I've never seen this. This truly is our time. But with all this excitement, I still firmly believe that investors still don't understand how to come in. They still do generalizes in bits and pieces. When we raised this Atlas Mara vehicle, we set out to raise $250 million, and we listed on the London Stock Exchange to raise this money. We decided to raise it, and we literally closed around, the time when we decided to raise it, we closed around within 75 days. But we set out to raise $250 million, and we were oversubscribed, and we took in $325 million to start off with. But majority of that money is coming from the US. And majority of that money has never invested in Africa before. And it's amazing to see how people are looking for platforms that they can understand and trust and come into the continent. People still misunderstand us. We are 54 countries. We're very, very different. We've got to be real in the sense that regional integration is really happening. That's changing the way business happens on the continent, which is great. Like, the regional integration side, I mean, I think the best regional integration program we have is the East African community because it's the smallest and it's been the quickest in terms of progress. But, the East African community is made up of 5 countries, as you know, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi. I advise 3 of those 5 heads of state. And I'm seeing firsthand that the mindset and the priorities are very different. Everybody has still their own mindset. Everybody still has their own histories. But at the same time, they all want to be, out of those 5 countries, each one of them wants to be the ICT hub of that region. All of them want to be the financial services hub of that region, right? So there's an interesting dilemma. And I'll tell you, my 2 examples are when I was traveling to Zambia at the time when Ghana was playing in the World Cup, right? And I went to Zambia, and Zambia is in Southern Africa, Ghana, West Africa. I went there, and in Zambia, there were Ghanaian flags everywhere. We're patriotic as a continent. When Italy's playing in the World Cup, France never puts Italian flags up, right? I mean, we truly are patriotic as a continent. We're unique. But coming back to my early example, every country wants to be the hub of the region. And therefore, we're all competing with each other. It's like that anecdote of 3 guys walking in a safari park, and they see a lion. One guy throws his bag on the floor, starts putting on his trainers. The other 2 look at him and say, "Do you really think you can outrun that lion?" He said, "No, but I can outrun you 2, right?" And I think that's exactly what's happening, that our heads of state and our countries are competing with each other to become the hub of the region, which is excellent. And what that's doing is, frankly, it's improving governance. It's improving more transparency. It's creating a better investment climate, which is a very interesting time for us to see. So, and I think, perception versus reality is so different. At the time when Mara was in 19 countries, CNN asked me my favorite country out of the 19 countries. And I said Nigeria. Now, the perception versus reality, again, is very, very different. But I was very careful because I am from East Africa. So I kind of said, but as a region, I love East Africa. But the East Africans didn't buy that. But, I mean, the thing is, when you look at Nigeria, our trade minister is ex-Goldman Sachs. Our finance minister is ex-World Bank. Our ICT minister is ex-Accenture, right? The asset management company head and the sovereign wealth fund manager head, the ex-Goldman Sachs. I mean, we have a fantastic team in place running our country, right? And we truly do want to leave behind a positive legacy. You're seeing that trickle down in the system, but we are going through that transformation. So I think there is a lot of change happening, but we've got to truly plug in the right way and just understand exactly what's happening. But since the downturn, I've seen where local investors, such as Mara, always used to get pushed aside before. And foreign investors used to get a red carpet, and we used to get the dusty gray carpet on the side. When the downturn happened, a lot of foreign investors unplugged and went back to save themselves and save, whatever they had to do at their bases. Local investors remained. We remained plugged in. We remained there. And I think I've seen a massive mindset shift from our governments in the last 5 years particularly, where they've realized that foreign investors can unplug pretty easily and go back, whereas local investors, they know where to find us, and they know we're not going to go anywhere. And therefore, all of a sudden, I'm seeing that African governments have a lot more faith in African businesses than they used to. And therefore, I think we've got the red carpet now and the dusty grays on slightly on the side. And I think this is a time for us to take advantage of this. We are Africans, we are local. But it's a matter of creating the right types of partnerships. Don't think you can be good at everything. Us being so diverse, yet trying to become leaders in every sector we're in, from banking to manufacturing, to IT, to real estate. The only reason and the only way we've been able to do this is by truly plugging into the right partners. Bob Diamond, again, is a great example where he's been in the banking space for 30, 35 years. His track record of what he did with Barclays Capital and BGI has been absolutely phenomenal. But his personal experience on Africa through Barclays and through ABSA has been absolutely brilliant. At the same time, our IT partners similarly, our manufacturing partners similarly. And I think it's a matter of creating that blend of local and global in the true sense. And that's what's going to take us forward. Is it easy? No. Does bureaucracy exist? Yes. But we have to fight it. And how do I fight bureaucracy? I mean, I go through bureaucracy all the time. Less so now, but I still do. And my simple answer is not to succumb, not to kind of go down to those levels, but to name and shame. And I have named and shamed many times, and it works. It genuinely does work. So if you're going to tell me bureaucracy is stopping you and it's going to halt you, I don't believe that. There are ways around it, and there are ways around it by truly naming and shaming. Everybody right now is trying to be the leader. Everybody's trying to be the best. No one can afford that, and therefore we can use that to our advantage. Look, guys, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to be global, but you got to be local in the true sense. The experience that all of you have, you're amazing minds. I mean, you can read and write. I can't even do that properly, right? But you guys have some amazing strength where the US has so much power. I mean, I recently watched this History Channel documentary called The Men Who Built America. And it was all about the Rockefellers and Carnegies and Vanderbilts and JP Morgans and Fords. Unbelievable, right? And how those entrepreneurs kind of helped the US government in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Just shows you that everybody's been through that phase. But my simple answer is that, the West has been there done the steps of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and is now looking at 6. As Africa, we're probably at a 2, but we don't have to go through the 3, 4, and 5. We can see what they've done and how they've done it, and we can straight go to 6 and 7. We can truly leapfrog. And I mean this in the real sense. This is a huge advantage. And you guys, being exposed to the US as the way you've been, is such a huge strength. But when you come back home, and you guys have got to come back home, you've got to come back with a real mindset where you want to make a difference, you want to do something different, come in and think slightly differently. We've got to almost be a little crazy. I mean, think about it, right? Twitter, a company that restricts you to 140 characters, makes you send it out there, other people retweet it, get excited, and it's worth $22.5 billion. Right? I mean, this is the time. I mean, social media in Africa, this is the time. Technology has been one angle. Financial services, I told you, I mean, the penetration is so low. So many sectors. You guys know all the facts around Africa. We have the most naturally rain-fed arable land in the world. Right? I mean, we've got so much to do around this. But come with a mindset of adding value, looking at how we can use our crops and how we can do something different with it, how we can add value, bring in global players. There's an amazing opportunity. Come in with that positive mindset, but truly be local and think global at the same time. Don't try and become African overnight. Don't try and become regional overnight. It's not going to happen. You need to go step by step. Every single one of our countries is different. Copy and paste is not going to work on our continent. I can tell you from experience, it's not going to work. And think big, dream. This is our time, but start small, be practical. Don't get into this whole ego thing and don't get into this whole clash thing. I mean, my easiest way to kind of make people realize that is, it's a rat race. By getting into this whole ego game, you're getting into a rat race, and frankly, even if you win, you're going to still end up as a rat, right? So, I mean, just don't get caught up in that. Be yourself, be authentic, be real, be genuine. Maybe not as genuine as me. I mean, with ripped jeans is not the smartest thing to do, but, be yourself. And I think having the right values and ethics is very important. And I think my foundation has been my spiritual leader, Morari Bapu, whose core teaching has been truth, love, and compassion. And this has really helped me remain grounded and kind of just make a difference and be real. Don't get carried away with yourself. And money should never be the measurement of success. Never, never, never. Success should never be measured by money. So don't ever think that's the way to measure success. Don't ever get excited by that. The way to measure success is how much of a difference are you making? How much are you moving the needle? And I think that's what success needs to be measured by. Guys, we have leapfrogged in technology. We've got to be disruptive in so many different sectors. This is our time. There is absolutely no excuse, absolutely no excuse. Do good and you will do well. There are challenges on our continent. We can't blame government for everything, but we can blame them for a lot, but we can't blame them for everything. But the thing is, things like, do we have power shortages? Do we have infrastructure challenges? We do, but it's not only you that has it. It's the entire country that has it. Everyone's on that level playing field. So therefore, take advantage of what's there, grow it, do something different. I was in the Bay Area recently, and somebody asked me, they said, when is Africa going to catch up? So I looked at him and I said, we're not going to catch up. And he goes, really? And I was like, yeah, we're definitely not going to catch up. And he goes, why? And I was like, we're going to take over. We're going to lead the way. This is our time, and we've got to make that difference, and that's all of us. And the sky is not the limit. We can go to space. So thank you so much. God bless you all.
Thank you for your remarks. I'm Diane Wilkins from Washington, D.C., Development Finance International, working with a number of large global corporates on the continent. And you make an inspiring promotion, and I believe it, for the opportunity for Africa. I, too, was at the bank meetings. I'm wondering, what's your vision for leapfrogging skills so we can address that huge youth gap that's coming that has the potential for political and social disruption if it's not addressed right now? Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I think that's a great question. This whole thing around skills deficit does frustrate me quite a bit, to be honest. And I'll give you that. I'm going to go back to that same example I talked about earlier, which is our call center business. The answer to why BPO or call center investments weren't taking place on the continent so much was because of the skills deficit. There was no skill set there. And there were no vocational institutions that were kind of teaching BPO skills. And I think we're kind of overrating it. We're giving it too much importance when it's not necessary. I went in, we put 90-day training programs in place, and I had people ready. And my point is that we have an amazingly, the education levels of our people is great. The willingness to learn is fantastic. The attrition rates are a lot lower. So in all aspects, I think people are really willing to learn. And I think in every single sector, it's not only the public sector's responsibility. I think it is the private sector's responsibility. Frankly, I'd be very worried if government trained people on call centers. I would still need to train them anyway, because they have no idea about what call center training is all about. But similarly, in all my manufacturing plants, glass manufacturing is another one, where we're setting up, as Africa, float glass, which is windows, not glass bottles. We only have plants in South Africa, Egypt, and Algeria. Right? We have no plants in the real sub-Saharan Africa apart from South Africa. So we're setting up a $210 million investment in Nigeria, right? Phase one is $110 million. And again, the skills, there's eager people willing to learn who have the basic know-how, but then we can train them around the industry. So my view on the skills thing is, and I fought back on this a lot of times, even at Davos, is that I think we kind of overhype this as an excuse or as a method or something, but I think it's solvable, and it needs a public-private partnership kind of model, and it needs to be case to case. By building a skill base for a particular industry, and if that industry is not required, it's also a challenge. So I think it's a catch-22 in that sense. So I think more practical stuff is required around this.
Thank you so much for taking questions. My name is Israel Kloss with Boston College. We basically are doing Mara Mentors at Boston College without knowing what it was. So I'm really excited to read your website and looking at it. It's something we would aspire to, is what I meant to say. For a year, after coming back from East Africa, 12-city tour, I've been asked by the folks I met to mentor them in technology. I'm a web developer. I would love to hear more about what we shouldn't do in the Learn to Earn project, what problems we should probably try to avoid, because we're kind of coming behind you and trying to do something similar. And maybe there's a pivot you would recommend or some failure points that you could tell us. That would be great.
Excellent. Thank you, Israel. I think we need more of this. The honest opinion is, I think, collaboration is crucial, and therefore take advantage of our platform, create an entire section on it if you want to. I think that the key thing around Mara Mentor has been the catch-22 when it comes to mentorship is, if you don't have enough mentors, you won't get the mentees. And if you don't have enough mentees, you won't get the mentors. So you have to create a very, very large back office. I think we've got about 150, 160 people in this creating content. So creating content and being live and having debate rooms, forums, discussions, training programs, competitions, all of this kind of stuff is going to be crucial. So we'd be more than happy for you guys to plug into ours. We'd be more than happy to guide you on our key learnings if you're creating your own. But we need more mentorship on the continent. When I sit down, every country I go to, I try and meet some young entrepreneurs. And 30% of them ask for money, but 70% of them need the right advice and guidance and handholding and support. A lot of our youngsters, their parents are either civil servants or farmers. Who do they turn to for advice? And I think this is the biggest issue we have. So we need more, definitely.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks very much for speaking to us today, Ashish. I just wanted to reach out because one thing that, as Africans, young Africans, really interested in going back home and, embarking upon some of the things you're advising, one of the things necessary is, a passion and a belief, like I see that you definitely have in the continent's capabilities, but on the other side is obviously balancing that with a decision-making toolkit or a practical understanding for how to build your personal skills and knowledge base to take with you, like you say, with our experiences here in the US or wherever it may be, and go back with that. How do we, in our lives, reflect, and how do you recommend, from an advice point of view, to young people thinking, hey, do I know enough yet? Have I built up enough experience to go back and do something, versus obviously the passion that drives you maybe to want to pick up and go straight away? Some insight on that would be much appreciated.
That's a great question. I think, passion, like you said, is crucial, and I think I can feel that from the entire crowd. I think when it comes to the practicalities, though, how I would advise you going about it, by meeting your cousin who flies over here from Nigeria or Zambia or wherever, and having a meal with him in a posh restaurant in Cambridge and getting excited is not the way, right? I think you've got to come back home, you've got to feel it, you've got to see it, you've got to realize it yourself. Be practical. Be simple, be practical, don't be over-theoretical. But I mean, there's only one way to find out, and that's by jumping in the deep end, right? And I think you can do it in a moderate manner. You guys have all the understanding, you understand how to balance out the risks, etc. But don't go on theory, do not go on theory. Our continent is changing every single day, and I feel it, I see it. I wouldn't be able to write you a guidebook on one country either. I mean, this is an evolving thing, and no one's an expert at it. If anyone tells you that, they're really lying to you. So do exactly the opposite of what they're telling you to do. But I mean, there's so much to be done. There's a massive opportunity. Take advantage of your know-how here, your connections there, but be real. Just be practical. Go there, do something simple. Go through another organization if you have to get started, and then do your own. Or start off by de-risking and partnering with local people. as local as you guys are, and I love you all for being true Africans, yeah, I think you need your people on the ground, and you need people on the ground who have been there, who have understood it. If you were there 5 years ago, it's a very different place now. Right? I'll welcome you home. But going back once a year doesn't make you plugged in, right? So I hate to break it to you. I think it's truly plugging in the true sense, but be practical.
Thank you for your very inspiring speech. I must tell you, my name is Jonas Angus, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. I was born in Ghana, and one of the critical things that really holds me back to do anything in the continent is the common currency. If you look at it, I remember Dr. Kwame Nkrumah said one day that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless we have a united Africa. And out of that, from a business point of view, if we don't have a common currency, it doesn't really unite the continent, and it becomes so difficult to really go back to do anything there. I do a lot of stuff here, a lot of businesses here, but really, I was born in Ghana, and I just never thought of going back to do anything there. So you have a very different perspective because you live there, you do business there. What do you think about trying to get a common currency like what you have in Europe now? They have the different countries, but still one of the things that brings them together from a business point of view is the currency. Can something like that be done? Can we find a way to really talk to the politicians to do that? I think that will go a very long way. I'd like to get your take on it.
Midasi. I think, look, Europe hasn't been one of our best examples of a common currency. I don't know if I want a common currency to take place. I mean, when Ghana revalued the cedi and took it from 10,000 to 1, the currency devalued by 30%. I got hit in that process as well, and many other people did. I think it's a matter of being, again, just real about it. But one important point to take note of is our economies are very dollarized as well, right? I mean, my real estate developments that I'm doing, I have about, Mara has a $720 million real estate portfolio. My construction contracts that I give to contractors are in dollars, right? My rent that I get is in dollars. The debt that we structure, the little debt that we do structure, is dollars. So we are very dollarized. I don't think we need a common currency in that respect. My manufacturing plants work very well. I don't have any issues. Inflation, you've got trends. You understand how to go about it. The minute we try and create this common currency, I don't know if I'm so confident about it. I've heard East Africa talk about it. I've heard the West African Francophone countries talk about it. Makes me a little nervous, to be honest, right? But if you want a common currency with the US, Zimbabwe has dollars now. They just use nothing but dollars. That's a good way to go.
So Mara is present in a lot of different countries and industries, and I'm wondering, how do you keep people motivated? Because like you said, every country is different, and I expect that a lot the employees also behave differently. So do you have a common strategy for like keeping your employees motivated and keeping them up to skill?
It's a very good question. I think the way we do it is we make sure that every single one of our countries has its own, every single one of our companies has its own independent management structures, right? So even though we kind of complement each other as businesses, we have 18 businesses, they all complement each other, but every single company is very independently structured and managed. We don't lean on each other in that respect. The way we truly keep people motivated is by empowering them, right? We're not, we were historically a full-fledged family business. And one thing I was lucky is that my father is the group chairman. And one thing we agreed on many years ago, which is very important for family-run businesses, is that if we find somebody better than us, better than ourselves, let's replace ourselves. And if we're willing to do that, by keeping a difference between being a shareholder stroke entrepreneur and being a manager are two different things completely. So creating that distinction and making sure that we create that separation was crucial. But then finding the right people, you're not going to find the right people by just paying them well. You've got to empower them in the real sense, giving them the decision-making powers, letting them loose in their own respect, but giving them the KPIs that they've got to perform. people do it. And as they say, you know, surround yourself with people smarter than you, which in my case isn't very difficult.
Hello, Ashish. Thank you very much for that speech. First of all, thank you for saying everything I believe in about Africa. I do a lot of mentoring for young people in Nigeria. One of the problems that I see, and I would like you to maybe shed a bit of light on this issue, you find that a lot of young people especially, older generation too, because the man who spoke, who asked the question from Ghana, I have found that that is the mindset of a lot of the older generation that go outside Africa. When you meet them outside, they complain and they concentrate on all the problems. Oh, we can't come back to Africa, there's this. How do you guys cope with this? How do you guys do this? And I say to them, there are problems here too, but you're staying here. Now, the thing is, one of the biggest problems I see is that Africans don't have that passion like you have, like I have, about Africa. They talk down about Africa to even foreigners, especially when you consider the younger generation. I've had the opportunity to bring back some young people from Europe to Nigeria. Some of them are working with me now. They're doing very well. How do you get them to see? And I always use this example. They say Africa is a developing nation. The word developing means you have room for growth. For me, that's a plus. When they say you are developed, it means you've reached your peak. How do you get them to see that where they can make a difference, which is what you have been saying, it's not by sitting here, but by going out there and putting all that they have learned into use. I'll give you just a quick example. There's an Apple store in the UK. Every time I go there and I take my Apple products, they keep looking for this boy. His name is Michael. He's Nigerian. Everybody's going, where's Michael? Where's Michael? Where's Michael? And then I had a problem with the PC, and they were looking for Michael. And then Michael comes out, and I find out that Michael is a Nigerian. And I'm saying to him, what are you doing here being a technician in an Apple store? Why can't you get an Apple franchise, come back to Nigeria, and you'll be boss, and you will train other young people to work for you? And his response was, my mom told me nothing works in Nigeria. And that it's not safe. And I said to him, I've lived all my life in Nigeria. How do you get them to change that mindset? That is my question.
The bottom line is, I mean, until people don't come back home and see what's going on, they will not realize. But at the same time, as Africans and as Africans that are in Africa, I think the message is pretty clear that we would love everyone to come back, right? Be it Africans in the diaspora or be it foreigners. We want everyone to come back, but we're not begging anyone. We're not begging anyone, right? We're going to get there with or without you. By everyone coming back, we're going to get there quicker, right? But the bottom line is that we're en route. We're getting there. 7 to 8 of the 10 fastest growing economies of the world are African. If you don't get that, if you don't want the high returns, please don't come.